The research station floated in the quiet emptiness above Kepler 89c, a blue-green world covered in thick clouds and swirling storms. It was the first human-built facility in the star system, and inside it, dozens of scientists, engineers, and diplomats worked together to keep the fragile relationship between Earth and the Zelenari alive. Ethan Hale, a 28-year-old communications engineer from Earth, sat in the station's neural interface lab. He wasn't supposed to be working. Late, but the translator system had been glitching all week. The humans and Zelenari used different forms of communication. Humans spoke with sound, but the Zelenari were telepaths. For months, the translator had been bridging that gap, allowing thoughts and spoken words to be exchanged almost instantly. Recently, though, the system had started adding strange delays. Words came through a few seconds too late, making conversations awkward. If the problem wasn't fixed, tomorrow's diplomatic meeting could be a disaster. Ethan rubbed his eyes and leaned over the console. "All right, you stubborn piece of tech," he muttered under his breath. "Let's figure out what's wrong with you." The lab door slid open with a soft hiss. Ethan looked up and saw her. Erin Vera. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, human or otherwise. A Zelenari linguist assigned to the station, she had tall, graceful features and skin traced with faint, crystalline lines that shimmered under the light. Her hair, fine as silk, shifted colors slightly as she moved, catching shades of silver and pale blue. She stepped inside quietly, carrying a small, flat device that looked like a mix between a datapad and a sheet of glass. Her eyes, deep, clear, and unblinking, settled on him. "Ethan Hale," she said, her voice calm and precise. "I heard the translator interface is unstable. I came to assist." Ethan stood quickly, brushing imaginary dust from his shirt. "Yeah, it's not cooperating tonight. I think the neural sync pad might be miscalibrated." Erin placed her device on the table and tilted her head. "Then we recalibrate together." He tried not to stare, but it was hard. He had always been curious about the Zelenari, how they thought, how they perceived the world, how they could share thoughts without words. Working with Erin was both exciting and intimidating. The two of them moved around the lab, checking cables and readouts. The sync pad, a smooth metal disc, rested in the center of the table. When active, it could link a human mind to the translation system, allowing telepathic messages from a Zelenari to be interpreted instantly into words, and vice versa. Erin connected her side of the link first, placing her slender hand on the pad. "Your turn," she said. Ethan hesitated. "All right, here goes." He placed his palm on the other side of the pad, feeling a faint vibration. The console beeped, and a soft hum filled the room. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then, without warning, the translator display flashed a warning in both English and the flowing symbols of the Zelenari language. "Link error. Direct channel opened." Ethan felt a strange, cold ripple run through his mind. It wasn't painful, just unfamiliar. His thoughts, the random jumble of ideas and feelings in his head, no longer felt entirely private. There was a presence there, gentle but unmistakable, listening. Then he heard a voice, not through his ears, but inside his mind. So this is the human mind. Noisy, unorganized, and strangely warm. Ethan's eyes widened. Erin, her head tilted, slightly, and he realized she was hearing his thoughts exactly as they appeared in his mind, unfiltered, raw, and unedited. Oh no. This is bad. She's going to think I'm ridiculous. And now she knows I was just wondering if her hair changes color based on mood. Oh great. Now she's hearing this too. Erin's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes, Ethan Hale, I can hear you. And yes, my hair shifts in tone when emotions are strong. But you are wrong about one thing. It is not because I am angry." He froze, mortified. "Wait, You can answer me? In my head? Yes. This link bypasses the translator entirely. I hear your thoughts as you think them. Ethan swallowed hard. Then you also heard me thinking that you're... He stopped himself, cheeks warming. Her smile deepened, and he swore he caught a glint of amusement in her clear eyes. That I am interesting? Beautiful? That you are curious about my people? Ethan nearly tripped over his words. That's... yes. No. Well, she actually laughed, though it was a quiet, melodic sound. You humans worry too much about being polite. I do not find your thoughts offensive, Ethan Hale. In fact, I find them honest. Honesty is rare in spoken language. Ethan blinked at her, caught off guard. He had expected anger, or at least a cold, formal response. Instead, she looked as if this unexpected link amused her. They spent the next hour testing the connection. Ethan learned that the Xylanari didn't speak in words the way humans did. They used patterns of images, emotions, and abstract concepts. Through the link, Aaron could show him a memory directly. A bright sky over her homeworld, the soundless shimmer of twin moons rising over crystal seas. In return, she seemed fascinated by his human way of thinking. She laughed softly when she discovered his habit of narrating tasks in his head. She teased him for mentally complaining about the station's bland food while pretending in conversation that it wasn't so bad. At one point, she paused and studied him with a strange expression. Your mind is colorful, she said, full of contradictions. You are serious about your work, yet you imagine absurd scenarios while doing it. You are focused, yet distracted. I think I like it. Ethan wasn't sure what to say to that. He'd never imagined an alien could appreciate the chaos in his head. As the night went on, they forgot about the original goal of fixing the delay problem. They sat across from each other, still linked, sharing thoughts freely. The room around them was silent except for the soft hum of the machines, but inside their minds, there was a constant exchange of ideas and impressions. Eventually, a faint beep from the console reminded them they were supposed to be working. Aaron glanced at the clock on the wall. It is late, she said aloud, switching back to spoken English. We should continue tomorrow. Ethan removed his hand from the sync pad slowly, almost reluctant to break the connection. Right, tomorrow. As she turned to leave, she glanced back at him, her eyes reflecting the pale blue light from the console. Ethan Hale, she said softly. When I first heard your thoughts, I expected confusion or fear, but instead, I found truth. That is why I smiled. The door slid shut behind her, leaving Ethan alone in the lab. He sat there for a long time, staring at the dormant sync pad, still feeling the echo of her presence in his mind. He knew one thing for certain. This link, however accidental, had just changed everything. The next morning, the station's artificial lights brightened slowly, simulating sunrise over Kepler 89c. Ethan Hale sat at the mess hall table, staring into his cup of lukewarm coffee. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt the memory of Erin's voice in his head, not her real voice, but the calm, steady tone of her thoughts. He remembered the way she had smiled instead of getting offended, the way she had seemed curious rather than cautious. The strange part was he missed it. The mental connection had been unlike anything he'd experienced before. Words were always clumsy, even in perfect English, but the link had made communication effortless. She had understood him instantly, not just what he said, but what he meant. He didn't know if they would try it again. The link had been an accident. There were probably rules against it. Still, he couldn't stop wondering if she was thinking about it too. Ethan, the voice broke his thoughts. He looked up to see Ronan, a fellow engineer, holding a tray of food. You alive? You look like you've been run over by a cargo hauler. Ethan gave a weak smile. Just a late night in the lab. Ronan sat, Down. Well, don't burn yourself out. The diplomats will blame the tech crew if anything goes wrong tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to be the guy responsible for a cultural incident. Ethan forced a chuckle, but his mind was already drifting back to Aaron. He barely touched his food. Later that day, he returned to the neural interface lab to run more tests on the translator system. To his surprise, Aaron was already there, standing beside the console. She looked up as he entered. "Ethan Hale," she said in her steady voice, "I believe I have identified the cause of the delay." "Oh?" He set his toolkit down. "What was it?" "A minor misalignment in the translation algorithm," she said. "Easily fixed." "Then why are you still here?" he asked, genuinely curious. Her eyes flickered, a faint shimmer running through the crystalline lines on her skin. "I wish to see if the other connection would happen again." Ethan blinked. "The direct link?" "Yes." She stepped closer to the sink pad. "It is rare for such alignment to occur naturally. I am curious." He hesitated. "Isn't this against protocol?" Her lips curved slightly. "If no one knows, it is only an experiment." Ethan couldn't help, smiling. "That sounds like something a human would say." "Perhaps I am learning." They placed their hands on the sink pad. The hum returned, and within seconds, Ethan felt the familiar ripple in his mind, followed by her presence. "You were thinking about me this morning." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "You can't just open with that." "Why not?" Her thought carried a trace of humor. "It is true. I was just wondering if you'd want to do this again." Then we share the same thought. Ethan tried to focus on the connection itself, but her directness made it difficult. Every human instinct told him to guard his thoughts, but the more they spoke without words, the harder it became to keep anything hidden. She explored his memories, not deeply, but like someone walking through a garden, stopping to examine whatever caught their interest. She lingered on flashes of his childhood, chasing a kite on a windy afternoon, building a model spaceship with his father, staring at the night sky from his bedroom window. "You look up often," she observed. "At the stars?" "Yeah. I guess I always wondered what was out there. And now you are here, meeting me." He smiled to himself. "Yeah. Life's weird like that." In return, she shared fragments of her own memories. A sea that glowed faintly in the dark, lit by creatures that drifted beneath the surface. Towers of crystal that rang like bells when the wind passed through them. The soft hum of her people's thought voices blending in harmony. Ethan was captivated. "Your world is beautiful." "Yours is loud," she replied, but in an interesting way. They tested how quickly they could exchange ideas. Instead of waiting for the translator to process words, they sent concepts and emotions directly. When Ethan thought of a storm, she didn't just hear the word. She saw flashes of rain, wind, lightning, and the way it made him feel. In return, when she sent him the concept of peace, he felt the warmth of still water and the deep quiet of her people's meditation halls. "This is faster than speaking," Ethan admitted. "It is also more dangerous," she reminded him. "Thoughts are unshielded. You could see something I do not wish to share, or I could take something from you without asking." He hesitated. "Do you think I would?" She studied him in silence for a moment before answering. "No. That is why I agreed to try again." They continued for nearly an hour, exchanging fragments of each other's worlds. Aaron seemed especially amused by his imagination. "You create stories in your mind that could never happen," she said. "Creatures with wings made of fire, cities floating in the clouds, battles against impossible odds. Why do humans do this? Because sometimes the impossible is more fun than reality." Her grin widened. "I see." Just as they were starting another exchange, The lab door slid open and Commander Brandt stepped in. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with sharp eyes that swept the room. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Ethan quickly pulled his hand away from the sync pad. "Just running a diagnostic on the translator, sir." Brandt's gaze shifted to Erin. "And you?" "I am assisting," she replied, calmly. The commander's eyes narrowed. "Make sure you follow communication protocol. Direct neural links are restricted unless approved by both governments. You understand?" "Yes, sir," Ethan said quickly. Brandt left without another word, but the tension in the room lingered. Ethan turned to Erin. "That was close. Perhaps we should be more careful," she agreed. "But I am not ready to stop." He chuckled quietly. "Neither am I." By the time they ended the session, Ethan felt a strange sense of loss. The quiet in his mind after she left was almost uncomfortable, like the absence of music after it had been playing for hours. As they walked out of the lab together, Erin paused at the corridor intersection. "Tomorrow, same time," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, same time." She gave him a quick glance, and there it was again, that small, knowing grin that made him feel both nervous and strangely confident. That night, lying in his bunk, Ethan realized something important. He wasn't just curious about the Zelanari anymore. He wasn't just fascinated by telepathy as a technology. He wanted to know her. Not just her memories, not just her homeworld, but her. How she thought, what made her smile, what made her pause before answering. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Ethan and Erin met in the neural interface lab whenever they could. They didn't call it meetings or sessions anymore. It had become something they both quietly looked forward to. The link was different each time. Sometimes it was calm and steady, like sharing a quiet conversation over coffee. Other times their thoughts moved so fast that the connection felt like a race. Images, feelings, and half-formed ideas flowing between them faster than either could keep track. Ethan was getting used to the strange sensation of being fully understood. He didn't have to explain himself. He didn't have to choose the right words. She just knew. And he knew her too, at least in the ways she allowed. But deep down, he knew this couldn't stay secret forever. It happened on the 3rd day. They were linked, working together to repair one of the station's long-range communication arrays. Ethan sent her a mental image of the faulty wiring, along with the plan he had for rerouting power. She responded instantly, giving him a more efficient approach, almost like she could see the entire system in her head. He was halfway through the adjustment when the lab door hissed open. Ambassador Raines, Earth's senior diplomat on the station, stepped inside, followed by High Speaker Loreth, the Zelanari delegation leader. Ethan froze, his hand still on the sync pad. Raines frowned. "Hale, is there a reason you're directly, connected to a Zelanari without clearance?" Before Ethan could answer, Loreth's calm but firm voice filled the room. "This is a violation of our interspecies contact agreements. Direct thought sharing can lead to unintentional data exchange or emotional imprinting." Ethan glanced at Erin. She met his eyes, then turned to Loreth. "High Speaker, this link was accidental at first, but it has proven useful. We are able to solve problems faster than the translator allows." "That is not the point," Loreth said sharply. "The risk is too great." Raines stepped forward. "Hale, disconnect. Now." Ethan hesitated. "We have to stop," he sent to Erin. "If we stop now," she replied, "we may never be able to do this again. The alignment of our neural patterns is rare." He knew she was right. Once broken, the connection might never return. But under the sharp gaze of two of the most powerful figures on the station, he had no choice. Slowly, he lifted his hand from the sync pad. The hum in his mind faded. The quiet that replaced it felt heavier than before. Later that evening, Ethan sat alone in the observation deck. Through the large window Kepler 89c spun far below, its clouds swirling in endless storms. Normally, the sight calmed him. Tonight, it only reminded him of the turbulence in his own mind. He heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him. Without looking, he said, "I thought you weren't supposed to be here." Erin stepped into view, her reflection in the glass faint but unmistakable. "I am not. But I wish to speak with you." Ethan turned to face her. "They're going to cut us off completely, aren't they?" She nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, they will recalibrate the translator and block any chance of a direct link." He leaned back in his chair, frustration tightening his chest. "And that's it? Just like that? It's over?" Erin's gaze was steady. "Not if we act before then." He frowned. "Act how?" Her crystalline markings glimmered faintly in the low light. "We create a memory strong enough to carry through even without the link. Something that will anchor our minds to each other. If we ever cross paths again, it might be enough to find the connection once more." Ethan hesitated. "That sounds risky," she tilted her head. "You humans often say that the things worth doing are rarely safe." He gave a small smile. "All right. What did you have in mind?" Before she could answer, the station's calm voiceover speakers changed to a sharp, urgent tone. "Attention, all personnel. Meteor storm approaching. Brace for potential impacts. Damage control teams to stand by." Ethan and Erin exchanged a glance. The first tremor hit less than a minute later. The observation deck shuddered. Out the window, faint streaks of light began to flash across the darkness, debris moving at incredible speed. The meteor storms in this system were rare, but when they came, they could tear through smaller ships in seconds. The station was equipped with deflectors, but the incoming wave looked heavier than normal. Ethan jumped to his feet. "We need to get to the lab. If the communications array goes down, we'll lose contact with the defense systems." Erin followed, without hesitation. The corridors were chaos. Crew members running to assigned posts, alarms echoing overhead. Another tremor rocked the station, and a panel in the wall sparked as they passed. When they reached the lab, Ethan quickly checked the main systems. Sure enough, the external communications grid was failing. "This is going to take time," he muttered. "Too much time if I'm working alone." Erin stepped forward and placed her hand on the sync pad. "Then do not work alone." He hesitated, for only a second, before putting his hand beside hers. The link snapped into place instantly, stronger than before, like both of them were pulling toward it instead of just letting it happen. "I see the damage points," Erin said in his mind. "Reroute power from the secondary relays. It will buy us 2 minutes." "Got it." They worked in perfect sync. He handled the physical repairs while she coordinated with the station's AI through the link, sending him updated schematics directly into his thoughts. There were no misunderstandings, no pauses for explanation, just pure, seamless teamwork. Another tremor hit. One of the deflectors failed entirely. Through the link, Ethan felt a flicker of her concern, sharp but controlled. "We're running out of time," he sent. "Then we move faster." They did. Circuits were rerouted in seconds. Data flowed between them in rapid bursts. He didn't just see her instructions, he felt the urgency behind them, the precision, the way she anticipated his movements before he even made them. Finally, with a last adjustment, the communications grid came back online. The defense systems reactivated, and the station's shields flared brighter outside the window. The storm began to thin. The impacts grew less frequent. They had done it. Ethan leaned against the console, catching his breath. That was incredible. Erin's expression softened. "This is what they are afraid of," she told him through the link. "That together, we are more than the sum of our parts." He didn't answer right away. He knew she was right. The connection wasn't just faster than any translator. It was more powerful than either side wanted to admit, but that power was exactly what made it dangerous. Footsteps pounded down the hall. Rains appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 security officers. "Hale! Step away from the pad!" Ethan pulled his hand back reluctantly. The hum in his mind faded again. "What you just did was reckless," Rains said sharply. "But you saved the station. You and her together. I'll be reporting this to the council. Until then, stay available for questioning." Aaron met Ethan's eyes for a brief moment before following Loreth, who had arrived to escort her out. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The last burst of thought he caught from her before the link broke was simple and clear. This isn't over. The meteor storm had ended hours ago, but the research station was still buzzing with activity. Damaged corridors were being sealed, minor fires were being put out, and technicians worked non-stop to restore power to every section. Ethan Hale sat in the mess hall with a cooling plate of food in front of him. He hadn't touched it. The adrenaline from the storm had faded, but the memory of the neural link with Aaron lingered in his mind. They had worked together like one mind. No translator, no hesitation, just pure understanding. In those moments, he had known her thoughts, as if they were his own, and she had known his. And now, protocol was going to take that away. A shadow fell across his table. Ethan looked up to see Commander Brandt standing there, arms crossed. "You and the Xylanari linguist saved this station. Today," Brandt said. "That's not in dispute. But you also violated the neural contact protocols. Again. You know what that means." Ethan tried to keep his voice calm. "Sir, with respect, if we hadn't linked, we wouldn't have been fast enough. The comms grid would still be down, and half the station might be gone." Brandt's expression didn't change. "Doesn't matter. The rules exist for a reason. The council will decide what to do with you. Until then, you're restricted to quarters." Ethan started to protest, but Brandt raised a hand. "That's not a punishment. It's to make sure you don't make things worse for yourself." His quarters felt smaller than usual. The hum of the life support systems filled the silence. Ethan paced, trying not to think about the fact that he might never see Aaron again. A soft chime came from the wall panel. "Message incoming," the automated voice said. The display lit up, not with text, but with a symbol, a faint crystalline curve of light. Aaron's mark. He pressed the panel. Her voice came through, soft but steady. "Meet me in the observation deck, now." The deck was almost empty when Ethan arrived. Outside, Kepler 89c glowed under the light of its twin suns. Aaron stood by the window, her reflection faint against the swirling clouds below. "You're not supposed to be here," Ethan said quietly. "Neither are you," she replied, turning to face him. He managed a small smile. "Guess we're both breaking the rules." Her eyes, clear and unblinking, studied him for a long moment. "Ethan Hale, they will separate us tomorrow. The council will vote to ban any future link between humans and Xylanari outside of official negotiations." "I figured as much," he said. "But I do not accept it," she continued. "The link we share is rare. It should be studied, not destroyed." Ethan exhaled slowly. "So what do you suggest? Running away? Pretty sure there's nowhere to hide in the middle of space." Her crystalline markings shimmered faintly. "Not running. Acting. One more time," she explained quickly. There was a window of a few hours before the council's meeting. If they could prove beyond any doubt that the link could achieve something, no translator or technology could, the council might be forced to reconsider. "And what exactly are we going to do that's so impressive?" Ethan asked. She looked toward the planet below. "There is an old Xylanari outpost on Kepler 89c. It was abandoned decades ago, but its data cores might still hold pre-contact records. The location is unstable. The storms there are too dangerous for a normal landing crew. But together, with the link, We could navigate faster and recover the data. Ethan stared at her. So, you're saying we break multiple protocols, leave the station without permission, fly into a death storm and hope we come back with a memory stick? Yes, she said simply. He rubbed the back of his neck. You really do learn fast from humans. They moved quickly. Ethan used his engineer's clearance to get into the docking bay. Aaron handled the flight clearance codes, at least enough to make it look like they were on an authorized inspection run. Their shuttle was small, barely big enough for two, but its thrusters were strong. As they left the station, the planet grew larger in the viewport, its swirling atmosphere like a living ocean of clouds. Link? She asked, placing her hand on the small portable sync pad between them. He placed his hand beside hers. The connection flared to life. I've got navigation, Ethan sent. Keep an eye on storm activity. Understood. The atmosphere hit them like a wall. Wind speeds rose sharply. Lightning flared in the distance, bright enough to light the cockpit for a split second. Ethan guided the shuttle through narrow breaks in the clouds, while Aaron fed him instant updates. Changes in wind direction, sudden pressure drops, safe paths that opened and closed in seconds. They moved as one mind. At one point, a massive downdraft caught the shuttle, sending it spinning. Ethan's instincts screamed one thing, but her input came instantly, sharp and clear. Do not fight the wind, use it. He adjusted the thrusters, letting the downdraft push them sideways into a clear pocket of calm air. Nice save, he sent. We saved it together, she replied. The outpost appeared as a dark shape on a rocky plateau surrounded by endless storm clouds. They landed hard but safe. The structure was ancient, its crystal-like towers cracked and worn. Inside, the halls were silent except for the low moan of wind through broken panels. The data cores should be in the central chamber, Aaron said aloud. They moved quickly, guided by her memory of Xylanari architecture. In the chamber, a series of tall crystal columns stood in a circle, each faintly glowing. Ethan hooked up a portable power cell and began transferring the data. The process was slow, too slow. The storm is shifting, Aaron warned through the link. We have minutes at most. Ethan's hands moved faster. Come on, come on. Finally, the transfer completed. He yanked the drive free. Got it, let's move. The trip back was worse. The storm had closed around the plateau, and lightning struck so close that the shuttle's hull shuddered. Through the link, they didn't speak in words anymore. Just flashes of thought, directions, warnings, split-second decisions. At last, they broke free of the worst of it, shooting back into the upper atmosphere and into the calm of space. Ethan leaned back in his seat, breathing hard. That was insane. It was necessary, Aaron replied. When they returned to the station, security was waiting. Brant, Rains, and Loreth stood at the edge of the docking bay. You're both in serious trouble, Rains said sharply. Aaron stepped forward, holding the data drive. This contains pre-contact Xylanari records, lost for decades. Records that will help both our species understand each other's history. We retrieved it together, through a link no translator could match. Brant took the drive, scanning it. His eyes narrowed. If this is real, it is, Aaron said firmly. And we can do more. But only if the Council allows it. That night, Ethan was confined to his quarters again, but this time, he didn't feel restless. He knew they had made their case. Through the wall panel, a soft pulse of light appeared, Aaron's mark again. We will see what they decide, her thought came through faintly. But no matter the outcome, this was worth it. Ethan smiled to himself. Yeah, worth it. The council chamber was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every breath feel loud. Ethan stood in the center with Aaron beside him. Around them, the 12 members of the Interstellar Council sat in a half-circle, each representing a different. World Commander Brandt stood off to the side, arms folded, face unreadable. Counselor Rains began. Ethan Hale, Aaron of Xylenar. You are here because you broke multiple protocols, including unauthorized planetary descent and an unapproved neural link. These are serious offenses. Ethan glanced at Aaron. Her expression didn't change, but through the faint trace of their link, still lingering from the storm mission, he could feel her calm focus. Rains continued. Before we deliberate, we have been given the data you retrieved from Kepler 89c. Counselor Loreth has reviewed its contents. Loreth, the Xylenari representative, rose. Her crystalline features caught the light. This data is genuine. It contains historical records from before our species made contact with humans. There are accounts of early exploration, cultural archives, and maps of ancient travel routes lost to both our peoples. This is of great value. Murmurs spread among the council. Brandt stepped forward. With respect, the fact that they succeeded doesn't erase the fact that they disobeyed orders. If every officer acted on instinct, chaos would follow. Aaron spoke then, her voice steady. This was not instinct alone. It was trust. We worked together through the neural link, not as human and Xylenari, but as one mind. That is what made this possible. Counselor Rains leaned back. The link is exactly the problem. Direct mental connection between species is dangerous. It risks contamination of thought, loss of individual boundaries. In most cases, it causes confusion, even psychological harm. Ethan took a step forward. Most cases, yeah, but not ours. You've read the reports. We synced in seconds. No distortion, no conflict. We didn't just share thoughts. We made them better. Her instincts and my training filled each other's gaps. Loreth tilted her head. Perhaps you two are compatible in ways we have not documented before. Brandt frowned. That may be true, but we cannot build policy around exceptions. Ethan's jaw tightened. Or maybe this isn't the exception. Maybe it's the start of something bigger. But you'll never know if you shut it down now. The council withdrew to deliberate. Ethan and Aaron waited in the outer chamber, standing near a wide window that looked out into space. Beyond the glass, the station's docking rings glimmered in the light of a distant star. You think they'll let us keep working? Together? Ethan asked quietly. Aaron tilted her head slightly. I do not know. But I know something else. What we found today will not be ignored. Even if they separate us, the records will change how our species see each other. He gave a small laugh. That's almost optimistic. Her crystalline markings shimmered faintly. I learned it from you. After an hour, the council returned. Rains spoke first. We have reached a decision. Ethan braced himself. Ethan Hale, your actions were reckless, but your results cannot be denied. Aaron of Xylenar, you acted outside your mission scope, but in doing so you recovered invaluable cultural knowledge. Loreth rose. Therefore, the council has decided the two of you will not be separated. Instead, you will be assigned to a joint research program under strict oversight to study and document the effects of human Xylenari neural links. You will work together to see if your connection can be reproduced under controlled conditions. Ethan blinked. Wait, so we're not in trouble? Rains's expression was firm. You are still on probation, but you have been given the chance to prove your work has value. Use it well. The tension in Ethan's shoulders eased. He glanced at Aaron, and for the first time since the storm mission, she smiled. Just a small curve of her lips, but her eyes held something warmer. The council meeting ended. Brandt approached them as the chamber emptied. Don't think this means you can do whatever you want, he said. But there was the faintest hint of respect in his voice. You got lucky. Now make it worth something. Their new assignment began immediately. The research lab was on one of the station's quieter decks, far from the busy traffic of the central ring. It was fitted with neural sync chambers, observation pods, and enough monitoring equipment to track everything from brainwave patterns to micro-expressions. Their first sessions were simple, short links under the supervision of scientists. The researchers asked them to share basic thoughts, identify images, even coordinate simple tasks like moving objects around a virtual space. The results were frustratingly underwhelming at first. Without a real crisis, their minds didn't merge as seamlessly. Feels different, Ethan sent during one session. Because there is no danger, Aaron replied. We are calm, but perhaps too calm. One evening, after a long day of testing, Ethan found Aaron alone in the observation deck again. You ever think maybe they won't find what they're looking for? He asked. She didn't turn from the window. Perhaps, but I do not think that would be failure. What we share may be unique. That does not mean it is not important. Ethan smiled faintly. You always know how to make things sound bigger than they are. Her head tilted, and her voice softened. It is not bigger. It is simply true. Weeks passed. The experiments grew more complex. They were asked to navigate simulated hazards, decode complex alien scripts, and even predict each other's choices without speaking. The breakthrough came during a test involving a simulated asteroid field. The simulation was designed so that no pilot could escape without reacting to data faster than any human or Xylanari reflexes allowed. Linked, they moved through it in perfect rhythm, Ethan steering, Aaron feeding him instantaneous adjustments, their thoughts blending into a single decision-making flow. They passed the test in record time. The observers were stunned. Word of their success spread quickly. Other research teams began requesting demonstrations. The possibility of training mixed-species crews using neural links was suddenly a real topic in the council's agenda. One day, Brandt himself stopped by the lab. He watched their session silently, then simply said, "Looks like you might actually change things." Months later, Ethan stood on the station's launch platform, looking at a sleek new exploration vessel. It was the first joint human Xylanari, ship built for deep exploration, crewed by both species in equal numbers. He felt a presence beside him before she spoke. Our work is not finished, Aaron said. He smirked. It's barely starting. As they boarded the ship together, he remembered the first time she had read his thoughts, how he had expected anger, suspicion, and instead she had just grinned. That grin had changed everything.